Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon to our audience from India and good morning to our friends from Netherlands. I'm Shivangi Jain from Startup India team at Invest India, the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency of India. On behalf of our entire team, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT, the Embassy of the Kingdom of Netherlands in India, we welcome you all to the launch event of the Indo-Dutch Talks. I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to His Excellency Martin van den Berg, Ambassador of the Netherlands to India, Nepal, and Bhutan, Mr. Michiel Spiers, Director, Innovation and Knowledge, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy, and Mr. Deepak Bagla, Managing Director and CEO, Invest India, for taking out their valuable time to grace the occasion. Thank you so much for joining us. India has seen a very interesting growth arc in the recent years, particularly in the space of startups. The drivers of this growth have been our Indian entrepreneurs and innovators who have been ably supported by multiple ecosystem stakeholders. When we launched Startup India 5 years back in 2016, startups were few and far in between. The aim of Startup India was not only to help the startups within the ecosystem grow, but also channeling Prime Minister's vision to have a startup in every part of India. In the last 5 years, we've seen tremendous growth in the ecosystem with startups distributed in over 600 districts. The growth of startups across India has made us the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, with 44,000 plus startups, many of which are in core technology, operating in the areas of artificial intelligence, deep technology, cloud computing, digital finance, agri-tech, edtech, etc. The list is long. We have also seen 9 unicorns that have been added in 2020. Apart from the plethora of opportunities that are brewing in the country, a lot of Indian startups and entrepreneurs are also making their mark globally. We've seen Indian startups like Grey Orange, Ola, Delivery, who've really expanded to the global market successfully. The opportunities for our entrepreneurs to develop their products have been provided for and will continuously be improved upon. To take the Prime Minister's vision of Make in India for the World, DPIT is centrally helping Indian startups through policy support with specific objectives of providing access to global markets for Indian startups, mobilizing global capital for investments into Indian startups, creating an environment of absorption of frugal Indian innovation in global markets. Europe, and specifically Netherlands, has been a preferred location for many Indian businesses. Indian and Dutch companies have signed about 40 B2B pacts worth 650 million euros in the areas of water, agriculture, and health on the sidelines of the visit of the royal couple to India in 2019. India and Netherlands have also been building on multiple collaborations in different focus areas. The Startup India team and the embassy are also working towards co-creating an ad tech platform for startups and MSMEs in the agri sector. The platform will be extremely beneficial for cross-country collaborations between startups working in the agricultural domain. We are also looking forward for similar collaborations in the domains of medtech and health tech. To further deepen this collaboration, DPIT, Startup India, Invest India, and the Embassy of Netherlands in India have come together for the Indo-Dutch Talks. The Indo-Dutch Talks will further leverage this relationship to help the startups enter new markets with cross-border knowledge exchange and prepare entrepreneurs for expansion to the Dutch market and vice versa. We truly appreciate the support that has been extended by the embassy for this joint innovation and collaboration. It is a privilege to have His Excellency Martin van den Berg, Ambassador of the Netherlands to India, Nepal, and Bhutan, join us today. Your Excellency, may I please request you to deliver your keynote address?
Thank you so much, and namaste to everyone. Good morning in the Netherlands and good afternoon in India. I think we are addressing a real important topic. So it's really a pleasure to be part of the launch of the membership program Indo-Dutch Talks and about empowering entrepreneurship for Indian startups in the Dutch market. And I think we all know how relevant, important startups are for our society and for our economy. So it's good news. We do see so many Indian startups, so many Dutch startups, and so many connections and connectivity between the Dutch and Indian startup society. Just to give you some figures how relevant startups actually are. We all know they play key roles for economic growth, for dynamics in the market, for innovation, radical innovation very, very often. But I'm always impressed what they contribute to our society. For example, young firms account for 20% of employment in the OECD, create half of the new jobs. And in the United States, for example, they are responsible for 50% of the aggregate productivity growth. And these are very, very relevant figures. Today, of course, we are all dealing with COVID, with negative and positive impact. But also the startups played a very important role in COVID times. They played actually a critical role because of their creativity, their flexibility, reacting fast with innovative solutions, for example, in digital health, or in remote patient monitoring, in AI solutions. So also in a crisis like a COVID, you can see how important startup companies are. But at the same time, we see, of course, a huge negative impact of COVID on our economy, with contractions in most of the countries in the world. Of course, also startups are vulnerable, more maybe than already existing companies in the market. And you see, for example, in certain countries, a significantly drop of the creation of new firms. And I think that is bad news for the society, and it's bad news for our economy. So I think startup policies should be very much part of our public agenda, not only national, but also very much internationally. Because I think today in our globalized markets, where we see so many connections between different countries, I think startups is not only a domestic issue, but very much also an international issue. And it also gives chances, opportunities. Global markets give opportunities to national startups. So it's also a very important part of our Indo-Dutch relationship. The Netherlands and India have based their relationship on the Sustainable Development Goals and in creating solutions for a challenge of our society. And as we all know, we need private investors, we need companies, we need the creativity, innovation of the companies. And startups, because of their creativity, because of the radical changes, can play a very, very important role in here. If you look to the Netherlands, it's, I think, a very attractive country for startups. We have a very attractive hub for startups. We have a wonderful ecosystem for startups. Also, if you compare it with many other countries, among European countries, we're one of the best startup ecosystems. So I think it's very good, and we very welcome Indian startups to the Netherlands. We do already have a lot of them. But of course, we're looking very much forward to have even more startups, and we are very happy to support them where it's possible. We do already have many initiatives between the Netherlands and India with so many stakeholders from the private sector, like Philips, also representing here today, but also with state governments, with the Indian Institute of Technology in Madras, Startup India, but also said was DPIIT, and of course also with Invest India. So I really hope that today is another step in strengthening our ties on the startup societies between the Netherlands and India, addressing societal challenges, giving dynamics to the market. And I think that's very important also for our future. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful discussion, and looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your valuable insights and really instilling the confidence in us, and also being so supportive of the Indian startups always and guiding us. This really means a lot to us. I would now like to invite Mr. Michiel Spiers, Director, Innovation and Knowledge, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy, to share his thoughts on Indo-Dutch collaboration and the way forward. We welcome you.
Yes, well, thank you very much, and good morning from The Hague. I'm very pleased and honored to speak to you today from my home. Unfortunately, I haven't been able, due to the situation, to visit India this year, but I have visited India in the autumn of 2019 and before. And I've always been impressed by the vibrancy of the the startup scene, the Indian economy, and the Dutch and the Indian science and technology community. So it's a great honor for me to address you today in this session in the presence of also of Martin van den Berg, the Netherlands ambassador to India, and of industry leaders of both our countries. The Netherlands and India have a strong bilateral partnership in the field of science, technology, and innovation. Our countries are scaling up their ambitions for this partnership under a new agenda that focuses on solving shared societal challenges in water, agriculture, and health, and key enabling technologies supporting solutions to those challenges. Our countries have an equivalent of 30 million euro available to support STI partnerships for the next 5 years for this joint agenda. Now, we all know that in coming years it's startups that will bring many solutions to these societal challenges and that will innovate and change the way we live, consume, and communicate. Looking forward, it's very important that the ecosystems globally are well integrated to connect startups and other stakeholders with each other. 3 years ago, I still remember very well, I co-signed the Memorandum of Understanding on Startup Cooperation between the Netherlands and India. At the same time, the Indo-Dutch Startup Link was launched for India and Dutch startups that are exploring each other's markets. This platform offers access to key information, relevant networks, pilot opportunities, and navigators for the respective startup ecosystems. The speed at which India's innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem is developing is impressive. In 2019, I experienced the dynamism of the Indian startup ecosystem firsthand during the Get in the Ring event organized with Startup India at the Indian Netherlands Tech Summit. It was very heartening to see the enthusiasm and the niche products and services provided by innovative companies and startups. And I'm very happy to see the progress our countries have made so far. Our collaboration with Startup India has helped us to broaden our engagement as well as our network in the area of industry-led accelerators and incubators. Growing numbers of knowledge workers and entrepreneurs are coming to the Netherlands to leverage our innovation ecosystem. In the period of 2000 to 2019, this amounted to some 6,000 persons per year. We also see growing ties between our incubators, accelerators, and in the venture capital space. Startups in India and the Netherlands are increasingly starting to explore market opportunities through these channels. Promoting the creation of stronger linkages between our innovation ecosystems is an important priority for us, and we are working on new initiatives in the areas of AgTech, MedTech, and cybersecurity. The Indo-Dutch Talks series planned will help to further strengthen our collaboration by tapping into innovation hotspots in both our geographies. This bilateral partnership with Startup India is an important building block to ensure we leverage these opportunities successfully as the exchange of startups is boosted both ways. So looking back at the very fruitful collaboration with Startup India, we'd like to continue our successful partnership for the years to come. I understand that we are in discussion with Startup India to work on a strategy covering specific areas of interest, such as knowledge sharing, tackling regulatory hurdles, organizing entrepreneurship bootcamp initiatives, and dedicated support to women-led startups. I'm looking forward to witness the outcomes of our collaboration, and I thank you very much for your attention today.
Thank you, Mr. Sweers, for outlining the steps we can take to further consolidate the relations between India and Netherlands, and also for shedding light on the previous collaboration initiatives that have been taken up, which have successfully helped the Indian startups and also the startups from the Dutch ecosystem. So thank you so much for your words and sharing the information on this. We really hope to materialize on the programs as suggested by you. This brings us to the launch of the program. The main goal of this unique initiative of the Indo-Dutch Talks is to encourage cross-border knowledge exchange and prepare entrepreneurs for expansion to Netherlands and vice versa. Through this program, Indian startups that are keen to explore Netherlands as a market for their business opportunity and expansion will be mentored by industry leaders and experts. And this series also promises to provide the startups the opportunity to understand the legal structure in Netherlands, funding opportunities, sunrise sectors, many of them have already been mentioned and highlighted by the excellencies. The broad objective of the program also includes knowledge sharing and exchange of best practices, providing a gateway by facilitating the relevant connects for the startups across the market, and also providing a central platform where the startups can connect with field experts for query resolution and facilitation. This also aims to help the startups through Startup India's global partner network, in addition to the Indo-Dutch link, which is a central platform already working successfully for both the ecosystems. The program is envisioned to have 5 closed-door mentorship series spread over 5 months, having around 10 experts who will share their knowledge with Indian startups and address the challenges that they're facing in terms of virtual market expansion and also customer acquisitions. Each session will be of 60 minutes duration, followed by a breakout session where startups and speakers can network virtually. The program is expected to have over 250 partners, including incubators, accelerators, startups, aspiring entrepreneurs who will be joining us for this program. We look forward to not just Indian, but also global startups that are actually keen on venturing into Netherlands to expand their sales and operations. Excellencies, Excellencies, with your permission and in your presence, we would really like to launch the program. Thank you. May I please request Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, for joining us today and gracing the occasion. We'll now move to the panel discussion. New and innovative business models have been transforming and disrupting traditional industries at an unprecedented speed. A key rule in starting new businesses today is to think global. Although many startups know that it is important to think global and expand internationally for additional revenue, and also to cater to the new customers, the underlying actions may not always be clear or simple. Each country has multiple factors that play a role and which are very, very unique to each of the ecosystems. It is definitely not a straightforward process, especially for the startups. As a part of the Indo-Dutch Talks, we have a very exciting moderated panel discussions on exploring the Dutch gateway for Indian startups. Thank you, Your Excellency, for joining us on this panel to share your insights. We are very happy to have you as a part of this panel. I now have the pleasure of introducing the esteemed set of panelists. Mr. Daniel Maison, Vice Chairman, Managing Director, Philips India Subcontinent. Mr. Maison is currently the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Philips for India Subcontinent. He has over 2 decades of experience in healthcare industry. We welcome you, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Kurt Van de Wouw, Vice President, Shell Ventures. Mr. Kurt is currently working as the Vice President of Shell Ventures, one of the world's oldest corporate venture VC investors. He has also previously worked at the intersection of technology, engineering, and commercial deal making, and currently sits on several boards of clean tech organizations. We welcome you.
Thank you.
Mr. Willem, ED Supply Chain HUL and Head Supply Chain South Asia. He's currently heading the supply chain arm of HUL in South Asia. He also has an experience of 19 years working across different roles in supply chain. We welcome you. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Mr. Josu Devasya, Managing Director and Head TCS Netherlands. Mr. Josu serves as the head of Tata Consultancy Services, Dutch business, having worked with TCS since 2004. Mr. Josu has had extensive experience in leading global, diverse, and multicultural teams and managing executive level relationships. We welcome you as a part of the panel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Shivani, and pleasure to be here.
Mr. Deepak Arora, Associate Vice President and of Head of HCL Technologies for the Nordics region. Mr. Arora currently heads the financial services for HCL Technologies. He has over 17 years of experience in sales, business development, and strategic account management. We welcome you, Mr. Deepak. Thank you for joining us. Pleasure having you on board.
Oh, thank you very much. Pleasure is mine.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you all as a part of the panel. Without much ado and without any more wait, I think I'll just quickly jump on to a few of the exciting questions that we've actually gathered from the startups who have been very excited about this panel discussion. Each one of you have been a protagonist and also supporter of the Indian startups for their market expansion. So what are some of the leading programs and initiative that has been taken up by your organization for the Indian startup ecosystem and also the startups across the market? So maybe if you could just shed light on a few of those initiatives, that's going to be amazing. So maybe Mr. Daniel, if we could just start with you.
Sure. Can you hear me okay there, Shabani? All right.
Yes.
So good morning to our folks in the Netherlands or in Europe, and then good afternoon to everybody here around in India. It's a real pleasure to be here with you guys. This is such an important topic, right? And I think we, from our side, from Philips, and I'm sure our colleagues right here, and all the discussions we had with Your Excellency and Ambassador, we realize how important it is to continue, developing those startups, those new ideas. Organizations like ours are only as good as the new products, the innovations that are coming. They happen in the last mile with individuals that truly understand the needs of the different areas that we are working upon. And that is even more important in India because it's quite unique country with differences within the country itself, right? With a lot of differences and different needs. As some of you have probably know, Philips has been changing and transforming itself into an organization that is a lot more focusing the health technology space. Historically, we used to be much more of a conglomerate playing in so many different industries, and now we decided to really tackle healthcare from a more holistic way of looking at prevention, chronic diseases, and not just so much sick care or an episodic type of care. So in that spirit, and what we see happening in the country, there's been a series of new programs that we have launched that I have had the privilege to participate, leveraging our different campuses, such as our campus in Bangalore, the PIC, the Philips Innovation Center that we have in Bangalore, where we are looking into increasing access to healthcare, access to care in a more horizontal way from prevention and healthy living all the way to eventual hospitalizations and then home care as well. And we can get into specifics about cardiac diseases or oncology or respiratory diseases, which are the way we are looking at. Instead of thinking of a particular technology or a business unit, we actually are looking horizontally across and how to better serve and create value in this health continuum, which is what we call. So we have programs that some of you might know that we are revamping right now, such as Health Works, which is a very focused, program that we've been working in India. We have digital conclave event that we launched on an annual basis. We have, the opportunity to meet with different startups and new ideas. We have hackathons in partnership with different universities, and relationship with different associations like the NESCOM and others. And there's a variety of ways that we try to engage with different startups to not only get to know the ideas and see how it fits into this strategic approach and allow us to help save, improve lives of 2 billion people by the year 2025, which is our ambition, but also to be able to help them, because the index of failure is very high, and we have also knowledge in other areas that we can support. So further in this conversation, we can elaborate into more specifics about a program here and there, and I'll be more than glad to share.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm pretty sure that it really, helped the startups, specifically in the healthcare sector, to really get this information from you so that they can, participate more actively for these programs. And of course, health tech also remains to be one of the key focus areas between India and Netherlands. So, Your Excellency, firstly, thanks again for joining for the panel discussion. Thank you so much. Health tech, agri-tech, and edtech. They're some of the growing sectors in the Netherlands, and our Indian entrepreneurs working in these sectors would really, love to know about how to leverage these increasing opportunities in the Netherlands, since we are right now talking about, virtual market expansion. So maybe if you could share, some light on that with the entrepreneurs who've joined us today.
You would like to respond from me, Shivangi?
Yes, would be amazing to hear it from you.
I couldn't hear you well. There was some connectivity issue, but okay. Well, I think, as I said earlier, I think it's the startups and the young firms play a very, very important role. And if you look to the Netherlands, I think there are 3 points or 3 dimensions which are very key to the startup society. First of all, I think we do have a great ecosystem for startups. Also, if you compare it with other countries, we are really a top ecosystem compared to many other countries. Also, among European countries, we are really have a top ranking. And that means that we have many schemes, support schemes, either on a national level with universities, on a state level. We have several developing organizations, regional developing organizations addressing and supporting startups in many, many ways. So I think that's a high-class ecosystem for startups. Secondly, I think extremely relevant is that we do have a very open innovation system in the Netherlands, which means with all the high-tech institutions, the high-tech companies, we have top universities, and we have a very, very good educational infrastructure. So also the innovation system is open, it's very high qualified and very much related to international institutions and to international innovation systems. So I think that is key, especially today. And thirdly, about connectivity. The Netherlands is, well, the IT connectivity is extremely good. We have one of the best IT connectivities in Europe. Also the connectivity with the United States is the best from the continent. So the IT, we are in a way an IT global powerhouse. Also important, I think, the cultural connectivity. We have a huge of cultural diversity and very much culturally connected in terms of creativity with people with so many parts of the world. So I think this diversity in the Dutch society is extremely relevant. And we are very much connected with trade and investment relationships with so many countries. So it's really we are one of the most globalized countries. So if startups looking to the Netherlands, I think this is very important for them. And then I would always advise them, look where we are strong, particularly strong within our ecosystems. You look to key technologies and high-tech systems in agriculture and food, in energy, in e-mobility, science and health. So as a startup company, try to connect yourselves very much with the Dutch ecosystems. And there you see a lot of strength. And then you can connect, and you can also benefit from the strength of the Netherlands. And of course, the Dutch benefits from the strength of a newcomer, which always increases innovation and dynamics within the market.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we really hope that the startups can actually leverage from these synergies that, you've touched upon, and they can, leverage them well. And also with support from, all the industry leaders who've joined us today. We really hope that these programs can, really be, used well by these Indian entrepreneurs. So maybe, Mr. Kurt, if you could understand from you a few of the programs. We know that Shell has been actively working with Indian startups. There are already many success stories that have come out of those programs. But maybe for some of the entrepreneurs who've joined us today who still don't know about this program, maybe if you could shed some light and share, information on that. And also what's in the pipeline right now for the entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Shivangi, and thank you for having me. Besides E4, which is an incubator that we have started 3 years ago in India to incubate and help accelerate some of the budding entrepreneurs in India that are developing new business models and technologies in energy, based out of Bangalore. We have a global program of venturing, which is at the moment the largest corporate investor in clean tech and mobility tech entrepreneurs in the world. We have 95 companies in our portfolio, and it's growing fast, with a strong focus on renewable power, particularly around grid edge and smart home solutions, et cetera, but also a strong focus around mobility, where we see a very strong trend in India around entrepreneurship in mobility, which is very interesting, which is also why we're looking at expanding our presence in India as a ventures unit, just like we've done in China and other places, in order to be able to effectively tap into the Indian ecosystem. I know India a bit. I have a Tata Steel plant in my backyard, and I use Wipro as a supplier to Shell a lot. Both are Indian companies, of course. I used to play field hockey against India. I must say they've beaten me more than once. And the captain of the other team always reminded me that India is 80 times bigger than the Netherlands. So a little bit of humbleness is at its place. But I do see there's a lot of commonalities between both countries. Both countries have basically brought forward quite a few strong entrepreneurs. There's a strong culture of entrepreneurship in India and in the Netherlands. And both countries are quite open-minded when it comes to trying out new stuff, which we also see in our own businesses, in retail and other parts of our businesses. The Indians, like the Dutch, like to try out new stuff, which is, of course, a fertile ground for entrepreneurship. So the one area where we differentiate from other corporate venture capitalists is that we actually put a lot of emphasis on helping the entrepreneurs to grow. So we have a team within my team of implementation managers that help the startups to really bring their technologies and business models into Shell. And that has been very successful. So today we can say that more than 90% of the startups we have invested in are working with Shell as a customer somewhere across the world. And I can say that requires a lot of hard work. There's no silver bullets. It's just making a lot of phone calls, taking away a lot of hurdles. But it's working, and I'm truly excited to see how we can expand in India and tap into this magnificent ecosystem of entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to hear about, the deep work that is already happening. And, as you said, of course, I mean, it requires a lot of efforts from both the ends to really, materialize these collaborations so that, real value can come out of it. So I'm pretty sure that, that there are a lot of learnings that we can also draw from programs like this. Maybe, Mr. Willem, if you could understand from you and Mr. Deepak, you as well, in terms of the different programs that are being done and that have worked successfully.
Yes, happy to do that. I was trying to get off mute there. What I can tell you about Unilever is I think one of the things that big companies always struggle with in working with startups is that the organization is quite complex. You get into this matrix type of organization between countries and categories or divisions, and it becomes difficult to actually enter in these multinational companies. And what we have done in Unilever, and you would be able to find, actually, if you're interested more about that on the web, is that we have now for multiple years running the Unilever Foundry. And the Foundry is basically a collaborative innovation platform that Unilever has set up, basically to work with pioneering startup companies and accelerate partnerships or accelerate the rollout of products that have proven themselves already in the market and scale that up in a specific market or across the different markets that Unilever is operating in. And that has worked for us very well. So over the years, over 200 projects, 200 startups that we have piloted with, a significant investment that has gone behind these, and there's a contact with a much larger base of some 10,000 startups, I think, right now that we're working with. And that is very much focused on some specific areas. I think where we see most of the change coming through, if that is in digitization or the transformation, if I look at the transformation that happens in the channels that we serve, so the different customer channels, in products, for example, where new categories are coming up, such as in wellness, in our route to market. Daniel was talking about that before, but definitely in the transformation of the route to market, if that is in D2C or here specifically in India for how we serve the smaller or the Kirana stores. This is something that we're having quite a few partnerships in, or in the supply chain as such. And then, yeah, as with Unilever, you might have seen the plans that are there for people and planet, or the sustainable living plan, which is now translated into the compass strategy that the company has. We have made some very specific commitments on what we want to achieve for people and for the health of the planet. And I think there, in particular, if I make it more local here in India, because I'm myself based out of Mumbai, it is not only about working together with the Foundry. I think the Foundry is something that really helps to get the right connect for any market for Unilever globally, with a specific product that you already have developed that is has proven itself in the marketplace. But I think on a local basis with each of the markets, I see a lot of work that we're doing directly with startups as well. And I see that in India here, for example, if I relate that now back to the situation that we're still in with COVID, we've worked with several startups in making sure that we could help the health and safety of the people that kept on working in our factories during COVID time. That was actually an innovation that came out of India, with a startup coming out of India, and we rolled that out very quickly into different markets across the globe. I think in India, for example, the agenda on plastics is progressing very quickly as well, which is something very important for a company like ours. And India is truly leading the way. If you look at how EPR frameworks, the extended producer responsibility, so the collection of plastic, how that operates, and we're working with several startup companies there. In logistics, route to market, I was talking earlier about how it works that we serve the Kirana stores directly, and there we're working with startups here in India as well that provide us the technology, not only the physical assets, but also the whole backbone of software infrastructure that goes behind it, to make sure that we can serve these customers in a very different way, which we truly see as the future for transforming the route to market to Kirana store. So I think it's really both of these, where you have the localized initiatives that work really well, and you have the foundry for scaling up proven initiatives across markets.
I think sustainability definitely is one of the key focus even for India as a country. And, we've seen more and more of the startups who have come up in this sector. In fact, the department, DPIT, the department, they have themselves been doing a lot of open call for innovation where these challenges can be addressed. So very, very happy to have your support here, and also to understand that, health of the planet is, of course, like one of the prime focus. And there's growing movement there. Mr. Deepak, if you could also understand from you where you could touch base on, a few of the programs that HCL has taken up and shed light on those.
Sure, I would love to. Thanks a lot, Shivangi. So a little bit about HCL and the programs which we are running to bring the startup community closer towards the end customers. So since our inception back in 1976, HCL has had a strong focus towards innovation, and it's been a part of the DNA or the organization heritage. From the very beginning, the organization has realized that if you do not really have the grassroots level innovation happening on a continuous basis, organizations cannot survive. And this is where HCL came up with the terminology ideapreneurship, where on a daily basis, we encourage our engineers on the ground to think about innovation and how we can bring this forward to our customers. With this ideapreneurship over the last decade, HCL has come up with close to 80,000 ideas, which has helped deliver customer value as much as in the tune of 5 billion euros. The reality is that across now the past 4 decades, we've had multiple failures, but with each failure, we've also learned a lot. And that has helped us also understand that in this entire exercise of innovation, we need to work very, very closely with the government agencies, academias. We need to work closely with partners and customers. It is with these understandings that our Enterprise Technology Office created a program called as ESTIP. ESTIP basically brings together the startup ecosystem across the globe. And as part of that program, we have 8 VC firms, 16 trade commissions, more than 40 different academias and partners in creating this startup network. So what does this network do? On a frequent basis back in India, as well as our now 6 headquarters globally, so Netherlands, London, in the Silicon Valley, and in APAC, we would have quarterly sessions where we invite our startup friends. We get them onboarded. We try to understand what problems they are trying to solve and try to coach and mentor them. At this stage, we have more than 500 different startups working with us. And just during the pandemic, we've onboarded further 100 startups. The focus areas for us remain in the area of sustainability, smart cities, circular economy, customer experience, fintech, but also more and more the impact of technology in the changing lifestyles for our customers. In addition to it, HCL also has invested in multiple ventures like Morado Ventures, which is an early stage incubator based in Silicon Valley. And again, that has been focusing a lot on disruptive technologies like big data, cloud, or IoT and robotics. To say the truth, what we really see is that Netherlands is becoming an extremely important market for us, because we see that the startups which are coming from India, they are really able to enter the European market via Netherlands. Netherlands provides a great entry point purely with the availability of talent pool, the ease of access, the simplicity of governance. All of it is becoming a really conducive market for the startups based in India. And hence, HCL has been working very, very closely with the startups and bringing it towards the Dutch market and giving them a gateway towards the European economy.
Thank you, Mr. Arora, about touching upon these important initiatives and also talking about a few of the sector opportunities that lie for the startups who are actually willing to work with your organization. So thank you so much for shedding light on that. Mr. Devasi, moving on to you, wanted to understand, of course, about the programs that the startups are very keen on understanding that your organization is doing, but also in terms of certain sector opportunities. So, of course, we've spoken about health tech, agri-tech, mobility, sustainability, which is extremely important. So, your thoughts on in terms of additional opportunities that the startups can leverage upon when they're looking at Netherlands as a market, and of course, the programs, that your organization is doing.
Sure. So when TCS started here in the Dutch market back in 1992, it started like a tech startup in this market. And for all the startups who are looking for an entry in the Dutch market, from experience, TCS can certainly say that this is a very welcoming market. And over the years, we have been able to grow significantly. Today, we are one of the top 5 service providers in the market, and we are rated number 1 in customer satisfaction. So it clearly shows that this market accepts outside-in viewpoints and cultures as well as ideas. So it's a great platform for you to come, settle in, grow, and contribute actively to this market. Right? So that is one of the reflections of TCS in this market. And one of the things that we still try to retain in our way of working is to retain a startup mindset, right? Because one of the critical failures for an organization can be to feel that you are too big, and then suddenly you start losing your relevance. So we try to retain our startup behavior in the way we are working. So I would encourage all the people who are looking for coming into this market to come establish and retain that behavior to be successful over a long period of time. So that is one thing that I wanted to highlight. Second, in terms of the sectors where we see action, obviously tech sector is something that we've seen phenomenal success in the market. Some of the wonders where we are, some of our customers who are wonders in the tech space are customers like ASML or an NXP, Signify. All these customers are customers who have done exceptionally well even during COVID time period, which clearly shows that that's one sector where one needs to put energy on. The second sector that we really see great action in the Dutch market is fintechs. Some of the wonders like Adyen or even some of the big Dutch financial service sectors, and the way fintechs are coming up in this market is something for us to clearly watch out. And it's already quite established from that perspective. And third, obviously, we already spoke quite a lot about sustainability. We really see significant action in sustainability as well as climate. I think that is a very, very important topic. Then health tech as well as biotech. I think these are very, very important sectors that we really see. And finally, if I look at it from an energy perspective, renewables, I think all these things are connected in some form or other. One cannot be independent of each other. But yeah, sustainable. I mean, we also spoke about renewables as a key focus area in this market. So overall, we see that across sectors there is a broad acceptance in this market for emerging players. And this country offers enormous potential for anybody to come in, settle in, and grow in this market. So this is some of the reflections that I could see.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Devasi. Also, I mean, we do understand that these have been extremely challenging times where a lot of startups have actually redefined their business strategy to really suit to the market and, really be agile and take that first mover advantage, even in, the situation, and really leverage the opportunity. For the other startups out there, and also for the ones who are right now working on their expansion strategy, what would your suggestions be with respect to their expansion strategy for the Netherlands? Certain things that they should definitely keep in mind, specifically with respect to certain restrictions that are coming, and they do exist with respect to COVID.
So the question is to me, Shivangi? Sorry, just
yeah, wanted to get your thoughts on that. But of course, open to all of the panelists, and would really like to hear all your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think this country is very open to new ideas and innovations. But having said that, for any new startup who's coming here, I think one needs to really have a cultural awareness. What I mean by cultural awareness is that when you are engaging with the Dutch, what you hear is what you get. So there's nothing behind the scenes or nothing beyond what you hear that you should expect. So, and you should be ready to hear what you're hearing as well. So this is a first very, very important for anybody to understand to be successful in this market. Believe me, it is difficult initially because in India, the way of culture is there's much more tolerance in the way we work or the way we talk to each other, and we many times try to avoid saying a no to be polite. But in Netherlands, people appreciate hearing a no. And if something is not possible, it's better to say upfront that it's not possible. But what is the way forward for it? These are very, very important. These are very small things probably when you listen to it, but to be successful in this market, some of these basics are extremely important. And it is probably a different way of life and working that we are used to from India, but very important to be successful in this market. So I'm just giving a practical tip, but on the other side, from a business modality, I can tell you, this country encourages innovation. This country encourages new ideas. So, and there are different routes to reach to it, and enormous support you get from the infrastructure of the country, or basically the ministries, the agencies that are there part of it, all encourage new ideas. So please feel welcome, please feel encouraged, and also please feel free to connect to see if there are areas where we could help you as well from our experience and exposure in this market.
I think those are very, important highlights that you've just spoken about. Certain things that generally go ignored when you're actually looking at the expansion strategy, but also at the same time, play a very, very important role. Your Excellency, maybe if you could understand from you in terms of thoughts and also in terms of certain things that you feel the startups should keep in mind when they're looking at the market expansion to Netherlands.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I had to laugh a bit about the Dutch being very direct. I think that is very much true. Sometimes maybe even impolite, but I think it makes ultimately communication very straightforward. And actually, my experience in a way, and I think that's also why the connection between India and Netherlands is so good. I mean, there are so many connections between the Dutch and the Indian already for a very long time, but always very positive. So there is, I think, a kind of a DNA connectivity as well, that we really like to work from India and vice versa. But of course, there are some differences in terms of communication. If we ask something, you can easily say no. If you and you don't need to answer a kind of a yes, meaning no. So being very straightforward, direct, I think is important and very helpful. At the same time, the Netherlands is also a country of dialogue, of engagement. We do have a word for it, polderen. To polder is reclaiming land from the sea in a way, and that's really part in our historical DNA as well, because 25% of our level. But it only illustrates that we are really very often into discussions, dialogues, finding practical solutions. So you can be very open on about topics, concerns, issues, I think, and just have a dialogue or discussion on this, and you will get a straight answer as well. But also, and it's also if you deal with government agencies. I know that companies sometimes are very surprised about the openness of our tax authority, for example. You can really address issues with state, with the government on the state level as well as on the national level. If you have issues, concerns, or just raise them and discuss it with them. I think it's also, as said earlier, I think the Netherlands is very innovative, but it's also our lifeline. Being a relatively small company, two things are our lifeline: being innovative and being open. That's why we are maybe the most globalized country. I mean, without openness and without being innovative, we wouldn't be the 19th economy of the world with only 18 million people. So I think that is very important. So innovations are really key for our society. I think, again, we do have a very open society for startups. So please also approach us either as the network in India, already with suggestions or ideas, share it with us, and we're always looking for solutions. And what was also shared, maybe my final remark, shared also by Unilever, Shell, Philips. The Dutch companies are very much open and working with smaller companies, startups, because so for them it's a way to become and to remain innovative and looking for new solutions in the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Communication definitely plays a very, very important role. And I think, straightforwardness is something that's honestly cherry on the cake, because it's always good to know answers rather than not know and, just being in the gray area. So I think that really works very well for the startups, because then they know what to expect. So we really hope that the startups really do take it in a positive light. And this is also very unique about the market. And of course, I think we'll also connect the startups who are interested with each of the stakeholders who've joined us in terms of, establishing those long-term partnerships as well. So extremely happy for that also. Mr. Kurt, anything that you would want to add in terms of, expansion strategies? You've been working with the startups very closely for a very long time. So anything in terms of, when they're looking at their international market expansion, certain things that as per you play a very important role, apart from what has already been discussed?
Shivangi, that's a question to me, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I think it's important for startups in general, and also for Indian startups coming to the Netherlands, as His Excellency Martin van den Berg mentioned. Companies like Unilever and Philips and Shell and Heineken are quite open to work with startups. But as a startup, you got to think about, okay, how do I integrate my solution into the bigger value proposition that these companies are trying to develop? So you got to take one step ahead of, in terms of your thinking, when it comes to integration into a larger proposition, because startups are really good at developing a solution within a particular vertical, kind of a point solution. They're very focused on trialing and testing and developing that solution. But in our companies, typically that solution fits into a broader package. And so really doing some systems thinking around that package and how you fit in and how you can get it implemented, I think is going to be very important. And we try to help our startups with that, but also startups themselves can help themselves by really looking at that systems integration.
Absolutely. I think that's super important and also, a very prime key. Anything that you would like to add, Willem or maybe Mr. Maison, Deepak, anything that you would want to add here?
Sure, maybe I can add a couple of points. So over the years, what we've seen is that when startups are trying to internationalize, Josu mentioned a very good point on understanding the culture. And I've come across a lot of startups and they come and tell me that, oh, don't worry, we've created a beautiful website, we've got an agency and we've got it in Dutch language. And I'm like, that doesn't mean you are ready to tackle the Dutch market. Our CTO has a saying that to internationalize, you first need to do it within your organization before you can do it outside. What it means is that for you to understand the culture, how multicultural are you within your teams? Yeah, for you to understand the nuances, the idiosyncrasies of that country, the best way to go forward is partner with friends, get people who understand that geography very well. It could be the government regulations, the nuances of the industries, and that will help you expand very, very fast. What you don't want is that you end up spending months in trying to understand a country's rules, laws, and terms. This is where partners like HCL, but also partnering with academias. Netherlands is blessed with a great education industry. The Eindhoven universities, the Tilburg universities, the Rotterdam, the Amsterdam universities. All of them have great programs, and also the Dutch government has done a lot of steps in now you can partner with the Holland FinTech or invest in Holland, and all of these initiatives. It will help you get a better understanding of the Dutch market, but also partnering with them will ease your way into the Dutch startup as well as corporate sector. Thank you.
Shivangi, can I add something here? I'll give. I totally agree with my colleagues, and I think one of the things that we look for in our organization, especially as I had mentioned earlier, that we are very focused in the area that we believe we can make a difference and create access to care, etc. We look for affordability solutions that create affordability in healthcare. No matter what country you are, you can look at countries like India that there is a very small percentage of GDP being invested in healthcare, or actually out of pocket is very high, how healthcare is served, if you will. Or you can look at countries like the US, where good, 16, 70% of their GDP go towards healthcare. Both of us have the challenge that the outcomes of the treatment, of how services are provided, has to be much better. So focusing on outcomes and lowering cost not by being cheap, but by really solving real problems, right? Making it affordable, especially in India, is key. And that comes from understanding problems. I think Deepak touched upon that. Often not, I get into ideas and discussions where we developed something and let's look for the problem. And we prefer the other way around. What is the real problem? And then we always thinking about how can we scale it, right? How can we make it even bigger? And it's okay to make mistakes along the way. In fact, we incentivize a lot of that. We discuss a lot about, we're not super rigid. I think Your Excellency mentioned that the culture, the Dutch culture of being curious and entrepreneur is in the DNA from day one. And you might start aiming at a certain direction and pivot along the way. That's totally fine. Make as many mistakes possible and go along. But you got to be able to, think the bigger context, the problems you're trying to solve, understand deeply the challenges of healthcare in the different locations. The challenges doesn't matter, right? It could be any other industry. Before we, before you really, when we engage with those startups, we look for those things, right? And there are some many great ideas, and they're never going to be perfect. That we see some good light there. We want to take it to the next level, but there's got to be some structure behind that, right? And some, down to earth also understanding of what you're trying to solve.
Yeah, great. I think for me, not very much to add. I think on the culture part, because I fully agree with what has been said on the match that there is. It's very easy, I think, from somebody from the Netherlands to work in India, and for people from India to work in the Netherlands. I think the directness and the consensus, the polar model, was already explained. I think one thing to keep in mind, I think with the Netherlands as well, is that you will see that there's hierarchies, of course, in the organization, or in any organization, or that you would deal with, but it's much easier, I think, to have any conversation or any yes/no or any tough discussion at any level in the organization in the Netherlands. So hierarchy doesn't mean too much in the Netherlands. I also saw this from the time that I worked there. I worked there myself. And then I think for startup companies in the Netherlands, it's not that different. I would say from other countries, or even if you start up in India. A real solid understanding of what it is that the organization that you want to work with, what it is that they're looking for, what keeps them up at night, what are the things that they really struggle with. The better you have that as an understanding, and your solution fits in with that, it would be the first chance of success, I would say. Now, if it is with bigger organizations, it does take a little bit of time. We spoke about that before, that the processes that are there in place, they might take more time than you're used to in your own startup company. But I think a great indicator is for any of the companies that have worked already with startups before. If they've done it before and it worked, then there's also part of that culture in the company to actually make that work for the next one that will come. And I think the last thing, and that especially in the Netherlands, any promises that you make sure that you can keep them. And if you stick to those three, I think that's important factor for success.
Absolutely, can't agree more, and I think this has been super useful. Yes, Your Excellency.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's well, hopefully it's informative and helpful for all the companies and possible startups who are listening. I always ask also because the proof the pudding in the connectivity between India and the Netherlands is that there are so many Dutch companies already for a very long time working in India, and I very much agree. I think, Willem, you said it, that Dutch people love to work in India, love to live in India. I notice even with my Dutch colleagues, they always ask for a longer time to stay here in India at the embassy. And the other way around. I noticed that Indian people love to work and live in the Netherlands. So I think there is a very good connection. Personally, I know it myself. My wife is half Indian, so I'm very much connected to Indian families, and I know very much my personal experiences. The connection really works well. If I ask people or Indian people, why do you choose, for example, the Netherlands instead of other European countries? It's a little bit about the openness, the language. People find it easy. Everyone speaks English, so they find it easy to communicate, to go around. They feel at home in the Netherlands. Of course, it's a safe and a clean country. And very much the connectivity. As I said, in cultural dimension, but also the IT connection, logistical. I mean, it's close to other countries. So, as was said, I think also by Deepak, if you see how many companies, and I think it's the same for IT, for startup companies, if you look to the European market, use the Netherlands as your entry point. And I think, again, the proof of the pudding is we see 250 Indian companies based in the Netherlands, probably 90% or 95% because as an entry point for the European market. And the other one I had quite recently, you mentioned, Shivangi, you mentioned Ola. I had a few times a discussion with the founder and the CEO of Ola, because he quite recently bought a smaller company in the Netherlands. And also I asked him, why did you buy this company in the Netherlands? And basically he said, because, and this time it's about e-mobility, the innovativeness, looking for new strategies, new policies, new ways of dealing with or addressing societal challenges. For him, the Netherlands was really a pioneering country in that. So if you look, so startups who are looking for addressing societal challenges, I think the Netherlands is very important. And of course, I think you said it, Daniel, a solution should be scalable. To make it commercially interesting, solutions should be scalable as well. So I think that's a very important dimension as well. Thank you.
Shivangi, can I add to that?
Please go ahead.
I very much like those comments, Martin. And I also think the Indian entrepreneurs are very well positioned because they are used to innovating in an environment of scarcity, right? Where the average income levels of their customers is lower than in the West, and that actually positions them well. Going back to what Daniel said, to enter the European market, because you may have a cost advantage from the very beginning because you're used to innovating to lowest cost, which is really important. And so yeah.
That's really very, very motivating. And I think, the insights that have come out are extremely, extremely useful for the startups also who are attending this session. Deepak, also, I think just adding on to the point that you mentioned about, spending months about researching about a company and, really taking that time. We have tried to solve for it with the embassy. We have an Indo-Dutch link, which is open to all of the startups from India and also from Netherlands who are looking at cross-market expansion. So let's say about the policies, laws, rules, regulation, rising sectors. So that page actually serves as a one-stop solution for anybody who's looking at that. So for the startups who've joined us, since you are interested in expanding to Netherlands as a market, you should definitely have a look at the Indo-Dutch link, and a lot of your homework is already done. Then you can actually work on your strategy. While we've discussed about a lot of similarities, in fact, between the two markets that the startups can leverage and build upon when they're expanding to Netherlands. But I think one of the common questions that has come from the audience is also about, because they really want to be, wary and aware about, what are the things they should not be doing or maybe be more careful about. So one common question that has come up is that, what are the differences, the cultural and the business differences? Of course, one is about, the openness and the directness that the market offers. But maybe if you could help us understand from your, respective experiences, that what are the differences that startups should actually pay attention to and keep a note of when they're looking at this market expansion? So maybe we can start with you, Deepak, since you're unmuted.
Yeah, sure, I can do so. So I think one of the common do's or don'ts is, and I think we spoke at it at length, that know the market which you are targeting, or really think about what solution are you trying to solve. And we've come across this a lot, that it is possible that a solution works great for the Indian market, but is it ready for the Dutch market? Where do you see the merit? And spend time in understanding really that, is that really a problem for the European society or the Dutch society in general? If you're able to find an answer for that, then start focusing on your growth. A lot of times, and especially for us as part of our incubator program, we have a lot of organizations, startups, come and say, I have really expanded really rapidly in India. I think my product is great. I'm ready to go to the Dutch market. I'm like, okay, hold on. Have you really understood it? What problem are you trying to solve? So if you can prevent that fall, your chances of success will be much higher. Yeah, thanks.
Sure, I think that's definitely key insight. Yes, Mr. Devasi, if we could understand from you in terms of certain things they should really be aware about.
Yeah. So one thing which I've really found in working here in Netherlands is that the Dutch people really look for long-term relationships, or they don't look at things with a short-term perspective. So especially for startups to be successful, please keep that in mind. Relationships are extremely important. Trust is very important in doing business. So the Dutch will always avoid a short-term gain for a long-term success. So please keep that in mind. And look at how you can establish yourself with a long-term perspective, build confidence, show, Deepak already spoke about in terms of, are you adaptable? Are you able to show proof points? So build confidence step by step, and then scale it up like what Daniel said over a period of time. So there are a lot of good points that we heard. I'm just collecting all those things and saying, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. The fellow panelists, if you would like to add anything on certain, things that really should be taken care of, or certain key differences between the markets.
Shivangi, I just want to say one thing, okay, that in a way was touched upon here, but I think there is a difference between being confident about your ideas and solutions and crossing the line that you lose credibility. In many times, you have people on the other side of the table that might not point that out to you. And in different parts of India, I've noticed that the style of even communicating an idea is very different. For example, I find that in the north, people are a little bit more aggressive and a little overexcited about what they came up with than the south. And that's important because it's about relationships and impressions, right? And a lot of times you're going to make a decision and make an investment. So I do appreciate the confidence, the passion. I love that. But at what point you are becoming a little even annoying, right? To the point that you are just not getting it, right? That common sense is important for me. Even, as I am representing India for Philips, and I go to talk to our, folks in the Netherlands to sell Philips India and everything that we're trying to do, which, by the way, I only have to thank you, Shivangi and Mr. Bagla, for all the support you guys have always given people, leaders like me to sell India and get more, because I compete against other markets that Philips participate. But I think this is a little bit of a cultural common sense that needs to be always in check, That's an observation there.
That's a very crucial information because, there's a very thin line between these two things. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Do we have any additional thoughts, any more highlights that any one of you would want to, add on? Okay, wonderful. But thank you so much. I think those were excellent.
Yeah, maybe 2 points I would like to make, because I think about talking about culture. Of course, for Indians, Netherlands seems a very, very small country. but we do see big cultural differences within the country. So doing business with someone in the northern part like Friesland is very different from doing business with someone in the south like Limburg. So I think you said that, Deepak, I very much agree. Know your market, know your people you're going to work with. But doing business in the southern part of Holland is different. In the southern part of Holland, it's more common that you will have a nice dinner with wine, etc., etc. So the social dimension of doing business is different from if you go to Friesland and then maybe you get a Dutch sandwich and a glass of Dutch milk and then you do the business. Well, I'm joking a bit, but you do have cultural difference. So be aware also in the Netherlands that we do have, like Daniel said about India. But people maybe tend to forget because it's such a small country. And if you put India on the map of the Netherlands completely disappears in one of the states. And secondly, I think we all see so many discussions on the made in India or made in the US or made in maybe made in Europe, and all the discussions on the restructuring of supply chains. And hopefully we don't see a nationalization of supply chains, because I think making in a certain country is, I think, shooting in your own foot. But we in the Netherlands, of course, we are too small for such a discussion. So we will continue to look, and you will already see examples in healthcare, for example, we will continue to look for international solutions. So don't be concerned or afraid as an Indian startup or an Indian company go to the Netherlands that we suddenly will see a change of policies. No, now we're going for Dutch solutions. No, we will also try to find, affordable solutions, and whether that's an Indian one or not, it's about affordability, innovativeness, and is it really addressing an issue or a challenge of our society? That is far more relevant than the nationalistic frame of a solution. So the Netherlands was open for 500 years and will be open also for the next 500 years. So that's, I think, the connectivity with international relations remains there. I think it's maybe important to realize even today in more protectionistic or nationalistic or kind of discussions also in economic policies you see today. Thank you.
I like that, Martin. I think if you look at the companies surrounded here around the table, they all source opportunities globally. I fundamentally don't care where the opportunity is coming from, as long as it's a good opportunity.
Yeah. I agree.
I think also where there's an opportunity is that the European Union is pushing a Green Deal, basically an enormous focus, and also tremendous funds made available to basically make our economies more sustainable, more circular, reducing carbon and methane emissions. And that also provides an opportunity for Indian startups in that space moving to Europe, because there's going to be a lot of funding and capabilities made available to actually help you along in contributing to a more sustainable future. And I think Europe will try and differentiate itself along that axis quite well.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think it's also good for the startups to know that everyone is very much welcome, but also because we realize we learn from Indian startups. We learn from Indian way of doing business. So it's really a two-way street. So it's also, in that respect, they're very welcome, because it contributes also to our society, to our way of doing business. And it's really a two-way street. So again, very, very welcome.
Absolutely. I think a lot of insights have come out in terms of, knowing the market, in terms of relationship impressions, how to really, identify that what is the market that you're serving for, what are you catering to, and how do you deal with those relationships and how do you take them forward in terms of affordability, scalability. So this has been extremely useful. Your Excellency, since we have the relevant audience also today in terms of startups, who are super interested in expanding to Netherlands, and we know that the embassy has been doing some great work in terms of the startup visa support and the hand-holding that the embassy has been providing to these startups. So maybe if you could shed some light on that, so that these startups can actually use those opportunities, because these two programs are super important. And of course, I think once they've decided to venture into the market, they are going to be one of the first steps for them.
Yeah, we do have. Well, first of all, the startup policies is a very important part of our relationship. We do a lot of work on this and try to, well, on the one hand, inform Indian startups about the opportunities and the possibilities in the Netherlands. We do have all kind of calls and activities, events, programs, of course, and always, yeah, without going into detail, because if startups are really looking for the Netherlands as an opportunity or possibility, please contact us. So we have a trade network in India, in Bangalore, in Mumbai, in Delhi. We have business support offices in Hyderabad, in Ahmedabad. We have honorary consuls in Chennai, in Lucknow, in Calcutta. You will find us on the website. And of course, if you're going to the website, you see many Dutch institutions, the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate, as was said earlier by Michiel. We have the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency, also with the representatives within our network in India. So please contact us for specific questions, information, for opportunities and possibilities in the Netherlands. So please let us know, mail us, search us on the web, call us, contact us, I would say. Thank you.
Your Excellency, I assure you that you'll be getting a lot of leads on that because, we've seen a lot of interest. And in fact, the National Startup Awards, which has been an initiative of the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, the finalists and the winners who applied for the program, we had more than 30% of them who actually expressed interest, to expand to Netherlands. Specifically, I mean, in the Europe, but Netherlands as the starting points. Of course, there is a lot of interest, and I'm pretty sure that there's going to be, increased traction on this one because people need the support. So thank you so much for continuously and consistently, supporting the startups here, because we know a lot of success stories have come up out of this, and a lot of startups have been able to resolve their queries and problems. So thank you so much for that. While we're also coming towards the end of the session, although I think the conversation can really go long because there's so much to share, so much to learn. But just considering the time that we have right now, really want to understand from each one of you that what, as per you, should be the way forward. The relationships between the two countries that are already so strong. How can we actually deepen those relationships, not just with respect to the innovations, but also in terms of the companies who have already expanded, for them to scale up, and even because all of you are large corporates and you've expanded in the respective markets and leading those regions. So what are your insights, number one, in terms of helping these startups scale up their ventures? So what are certain thoughts on that? And secondly, in terms of really deepening the India and Netherlands relation specifically for innovation? Willem, maybe would you want to go first, or Deepak?
Yeah, I can.
Go ahead, Deepak. I go after you.
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to keep it short so that Willem gets his chance as well. So look, the way I see it is Netherlands and India have been collaborating for more than 400 years, since the days of spice trade. Yeah. As Excellency Mr. Martin said, we've had more than 200 Dutch firms who are working in India, and at the same time, you would have at least 150 to 200 different Indian firms working in the Netherlands. And with the pandemic, at least we see a massive uptick in more and more Indian firms who want to come to Netherlands or even the European Union. Our advice is that this collaboration is still in its nascent stage. There is a lot more which India and Netherlands can do together to achieve the true potential. And my advice would be for the Indian startups is learn from the failures and the successes of your friends who've already ventured out into this market. Make friends, understand what has worked, understand what has not worked, and this will go a long way in accelerating their growth in the Dutch market. Willem, over to you.
Yeah, well said, Deepak. I think what really works as well in the relationship between the Netherlands and India is the specific areas that have been called out, where the the cross-sourcing of ideas can really help. Water, for example, is one of those where obviously the Dutch, with what His Excellency already explained, have a lot of experience with water. But I see a lot of the solutions that are being put in place in India for the management of water, and it's in particular in the communities around the facilities where, for example, our suppliers or our own factories are operating, can really go across as well. There's infrastructure, there's logistics, there's ICT, biotech. There's a whole range of areas that has been called out where both India and the Netherlands want to strengthen their relationships on, and I can clearly see that moving forward. Where I believe for startups, there's a huge role to play there as well. And I think His Excellency called out earlier that this was also set out with the visit of the King and Queen of the Netherlands to India some time back. But I think if that is the focus areas that will be there to strengthen the relationships between the two countries over the years to come, that could be really interesting areas as well for startups to look at, for what can be brought to the Netherlands and what can be brought from the Netherlands to here.
Absolutely. I think these are super relevant areas that you've highlighted. Kurt, do you want to go next in terms of sharing the learnings with the startups here?
Well, I think there's going to be an increasing opportunity as follows. What I see happening in the energy landscape is a merger between the tech sector, the agricultural sector, and the energy sector. And because all these sectors are trying to drive and move towards a low carbon or zero carbon future. Huh? Each of these companies, whether it's Amazon or Shell or large agricultural conglomerates, are striving towards net zero carbon. Whether it's in 2040, 50 or 60. And so what is happening is you see these companies starting to collaborate a lot more than they have in the past. Yeah, the big tech companies are trying to limit the carbon emissions from their large data centers, which are at the moment large sources of emission. The energy companies, of course, have clear ambitions to reduce the carbon they emit from their products. And the agricultural sector provides an excellent opportunity to actually take large quantities of carbon out of the atmosphere. And we see that nature-based solutions in agriculture are a great way on the short and medium term to actually get to that net zero emissions future. And I think given the heritage that both countries have in agriculture and in nature-based solutions and the struggles we both face with water, I think there's clearly a link there between the two countries to innovate towards that net zero emissions future. And there's an enormous opportunity also driven by European ambitions and certainly led by the Netherlands to spend resources and money in those domains.
Absolutely. So, of course, we've spoken about zero carbon emission. We've spoken about sustainability, water as some of the sectors, which are of prime importance and should really be paid attention to. And there are a lot of innovations coming up, even within the Indian market, with respect to that. If we could hear from you, Mr. Devasya, in terms of your learnings and certain things that startups should keep in mind.
Yeah, maybe I will further expand on what Kurt has just mentioned. I think one thing that one should focus on clearly is on creating new business models, right? So that is extremely important. Rather than trying to repeat what already is being done, try to do new business models. So, for example, one of the examples that we did with this, probably I could call an example, is with Daman Shipyards, an organization which the Dutch really keep close to their heart, because shipbuilding is something that is integral as part of the Dutch heritage. And we did an IoT program with them, which helped them to make their ships more smarter, where they are able to have a predictive behavior of their ships, due to which maintenance, better fuel consumptions, all those things could be done. And Daman could move from being a traditional shipbuilder to be a new maritime solutions provider. A great example of how a traditional organization like Daman is now becoming much more way to the forward and leveraging new business models that they can give to their customers. So that is one thing that I would like the startups to focus. The second thing, again, I'm again latching on to what Kurt mentioned. It is to look beyond what you are able to offer within your ecosystem. I think for one to be successful in the new digital revolution age, it is important to partner with your ecosystem, right? You just can't innovate alone. And this combination of all the different organizations, yeah, there might be a competitor, but if you are able to cooperate with them and partner with them, the success is much bigger. And I think that is also very, very important when you look at, and also that's also culture of Dutch as well, which resonates very well with the Dutch culture. They also like to expand the horizon rather than looking inside. They like to look outside and look at what each other is able to bring in. So two simple principles which I'd like to bring: focus on new business models. Second, partner within the ecosystem. Yeah.
I think local partnerships definitely play a super important role, especially when expanding to new markets, because I think that really sets the foundation of, when you start the business in that country. And of course, there are a lot of cross learnings also happen, as mentioned by Deepak earlier. Willem, maybe if we could hear from you in terms of, your learnings and also in terms of the way ahead, how do we deepen these relationships? Would be amazing for the viewers.
I'm sorry, Shivangi, I had a problem with my internet connection. Which relationships you mentioned?
So, Willem, would be amazing to hear from you in terms of how do we deepen the India-Netherlands relationship, number one, and also in terms of how can the startups actually scale up the businesses, whether in India or in Netherlands?
Right. I think for the relationships, I do believe, in all honesty, that with what has been put in place between India and the Netherlands, this is truly moving in the right direction. And the scale up of the initiatives and the focus areas that have been called out, where India and the Netherlands want to work together, I see some real good green shoots of that coming through already, if that is in water management or if that is in logistics, for example. Some great examples coming through as well in sustainability. So I can only look forward to how that will scale up further in the years to come. And that is definitely going on the right track. I think for the scale up that you mentioned, and specifically for startups going from India into the Netherlands or the other way around, I think many of the things there that are important, and I don't want to repeat them all, but they have been said in the different parts that were answered before, and combining those, I believe that understanding of what is the problem that you're trying to solve for, and how important is that for the company or the partners that you're trying to work with. It truly starts with that, and the bigger that problem is. I remember from one of the coaches for startups in the Netherlands, who has been quite successful there. He called that always the bleeding neck problem. That it was something that you definitely couldn't go around, and if you had that bleeding neck problem, such to say, that you identified, then the interest for actually working on that or getting it solved was truly there. So the understanding of that problem, I think, is extremely important, and then a bit of understanding of the culture, the differences, the processes. So you do need to invest the time in it. It won't come all automatically, or maybe even as quick as it goes in India, because the differences that are there, the cultural differences, will play some part. And then I think we spoke as well about the importance of actually promising what you can deliver. So I think in particular, going into the Netherlands, having promising the world, but delivering half of the world won't be good enough. So it with that directness that we spoke about before, I think that realism but honesty about what can be done is just greatly appreciated, and it will make you successful.
Thank you so much for those words, because I think they're definitely going to help the startups in terms of, what should be the way forward. And I think openness, straightforwardness, directness is something that the market has to offer. And I'm pretty sure that the startups will be able to leverage it only in a positive way. We also have Mr. Deepak Bagla, the Managing Director and CEO of Invest India, who's joined us right now. Hello, sir. We welcome you.
Thanks. It's so good to see you as always. Truly a pleasure. And, I've been hearing the deliberations, really interesting, Shivan. But before I start, can you see me? I think I've gone blank here.
We can see you.
Yes, we can.
Okay. First, I must congratulate Excellency. Excellency, remember, it's just about 24 months, or close to 26, when we launched this entire bridge together, and see how much is already happening on it. You've had a number of visits, you have startups visiting each other. It actually shows the synergies which are already there. And what I'm seeing now lately is a significant number of Indian startups looking to expand beyond India. Maybe also because they are very fast approaching a size where they have the comfort to look beyond. I mean, even during the pandemic, we added unicorns in a double-digit number. And one of the areas and one of the specific geographic locations where they're looking at is typically Western Europe, but definitely with you out there. And the levels of comfort which I hear from them, why, is because we already have brands from your country which are huge successes in India. So Shivangi, I remember you just asked a question that how can we strengthen this relationship? I think there are a lot of strengths already in this relationship. And Excellency and everybody on the screen have been working towards making that happen. And that trust and comfort factor is very high. I mean, there are a large number of names which I can go through. And, we have it even on my list on the Indo-Dutch corridor, which you see huge successes here. So, in fact, just this morning, we were having in detail meetings with our bamboo mission. So, bamboo is the new mission. We are the second largest growers of bamboo in the world, but there's very little we are doing with it. And one of the countries where we were having senior officials from the Ministry of Agriculture saying that they want to see the partnership developing more is with you. And it's amazing the kind of stuff we can do with that bamboo. And bamboo is just a case in point, which I'm mentioning, which just happened with me in my office 3 hours ago. When I look at water, and the largest water program, and Excellency, you're working on that so closely when we work on water and energy and all those things. The innovation bridge is now going to be the new pillar, which I've always been saying, which is going to create the highway between our two countries and strengthen that relationship further. And I think the beginning, we're seeing a lot of robustness happening on it. I think the deliberations today have shown that a lot has happened, a lot is now going to happen, and there's a lot we need to do. We need to get these discussions going more. And I don't think it's just a few so far. We've got to increase the scale on that one, and that's what we've been working with in our team. And Excellency, the idea is bring you to a calendar which we can plan out our next 12 months on what are the other elements which we can bring to it. The second part, which I was telling the team, is the things which we need to bring in are the new sectors we want to bring in. We have the strength of the traditional sectors. They're working very well. But there are a lot of strengths we need to learn from where you are concerned. And there's a lot which we can offer in the strengths which we are working on. So for example, we have a program. I know I'm extending my time, Shivangi, but this one I must mention to His Excellency, and he's aware of it. The Prime Minister has also asked us to work on a one district, one product program. So, India is divided into 739 geographic, what we call areas called districts. Now, each district in India has a uniqueness about it in the sense of raw materials, the skill set, and the products it creates. I'll just give you an example. For example, in the Northeast, the best turmeric in the world is from the only organic state in the world which is found in Northeast India. And turmeric, is the new wonder. It's not a drug, but it's a new wonder food essential, which is known to take care of everything which you have as an ailment and boost your immunity. I mean, COVID being one of the smallest parts of it, which it can take care of and help you to prepare against it. And turmeric latte is now one of the fastest selling products of Starbucks. So the best turmeric in the world is from there. So what we are doing now is we are picking up one product in each district and developing that into a global product. And these is where there is a huge opportunity where we start working together. You can see what else can be done with that product, where the applicability is. We can bring in our strengths together. And the second, which I must mention to you apart from my startups, going forward, the next big movement is going to be on my traditional strength, which are my MSMEs. I have 65 million MSMEs. Till 2000, India was known for its MSMEs and its frugal innovation. 2000 happened, you had that 2K or whatever that is, that's when the technology boys took over and the entire world started knowing us for our technology. But eventually, don't forget, the strength lies in the frugal innovation of India's MSMEs. You will see the resurgence of the MSME sector, and that is where I want this partnership to grow between our two countries, because that will be the new robustness, which will create best, not just for our two countries, but the entire world. With that, Excellency, let me please thank you, each one and everyone, for being with us, for the encouragement, and for taking us forward, and Excellency, always your leadership. Really, I mean that very sincerely. I've seen this corridor, the robustness which it has grown into it during the past few months. It is exceptional, and even during the lockdown. And your relentless efforts to make that happen. So thank you, everyone. Depending on you, much to be done. And please remember, we are with you to make it happen. Thank you, Shivangi. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagla, for your encouraging and motivating words and also guiding us on the way ahead. Thank you, each of the panelists, for joining us. Your Excellency, your guiding words really mean a lot to us. Maybe if we could hear from you in terms of the way ahead and also, what Mr. Bagla just spoke about, would be great if you could guide us on the way ahead for India and Netherlands together.
Well, thank you so much. And Deepak, always wonderful to see you and to connect with you. Thank you so much for your very, very kind words. And I fully agree. There are so many strengths already between the Netherlands and India, and increasing all the time. And even in COVID times, you saw so many things happening. I was very positively surprised what all happened. I think where you see a very strong collaboration, and also a little bit what Geert said on the challenges we face in society, the climate, the biggest one, but and there's also, we focus very much between the Netherlands and India on the challenges on climate, energy, on water, life science, health, and agro food. And I think, well, of course, we see challenges in these areas in India and Netherlands, but these are actually, of course, global challenges. But the partnership between the Netherlands and India can very much also contribute to those global challenges. And then there we need innovative solutions. There we need also frugal innovations. And the strength of India and the strength of the Netherlands together can bring a lot to the table, I think. Also because they're working so wonderful together. So what do we do and how do we have to move forward? There are already a lot of frameworks, partnerships, collaborations, and really focus it and intensify these on those challenges of society. And I think there we are extremely successful. And it's always a kind of a partnership between the companies, between the innovation institutions, universities, between the educational institutions and government and policies. We need also the public policies to facilitate, to fast track all those innovative solutions. And in that partnership, I think we see a wonderful strength and relationship between the Netherlands and India. And I'm very much looking forward to further strengthen this. And hopefully, with a vaccination in all of us, we can also visit each other in person again. because ultimately, we are looking very much forward. And I think also you said it about looking to long-term relationships. It's partnerships about long-term relationships, and long-term relationships basically are about trust, friendship, and trust. I mean, that is a key ingredient, I think, in our relationship. And therefore, sometimes we have to need to drink together, have a wonderful Indian dinner together. So hopefully that will be possible in the very nearby future. But I'm very positive and looking very much forward also to play our role in further strengthening those relationships, very much on those challenges of society to bring public and private entities very, very close together and working together. Thank you so much. And I think I very much enjoyed this discussion, and I really got inspired by this. And I hope many startups also will be inspired by this, and looking forward to meet or see them sometime. Thank you, Shiva.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your guiding and motivating words. And we really hope that we're able to host all of you very soon in person. Thank you so much. This discussion has been wonderful. We've discussed about the openness of the authorities. We've spoken about how you should focus on outcomes and affordability, being one step ahead, local partnerships, trying out new stuff and new business models, understanding the market, and internalizing globalization before you actually venture out. So a lot of key learnings have come up, and your insights have really helped the startups here. Startups are clearly at the heart of innovation, and they're raring to go out and conquer the world. So thank you so much for all your support. On behalf of the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Startup India and West India, and the Embassy of Kingdom of Netherlands in India, we thank each one of you for joining us. India and Netherlands are national partners, and we are confident that our engagement will go onwards and upwards. And we really hope that all the viewers also really enjoyed the discussion, and we were able to add value to what you're already doing. And in case you have any questions, please write to us on dipp-startups@nic.in, and we'll be happy to assist you and also connect you with the stakeholders. We are open to partnering with more such organizations that can add valued inputs. And stay tuned for the Indo-Dutch Talks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.